Damning details come out showing the financial situation at Manchester United has gone from bad to worse. We're going to talk about that, what it means, and what we know, and what's really going on with the finances at the club. The leaker is stopping leaks because Amorim is fuming over leaks. Amorim loses it with leakers inside United. Will the leaks stop? That's the big question. Louis Whitwell and Andy Mitten, who are very reliable and credible sources, speak about sort of the Man United striker transfer mess of the past. And then we've got updates on Antony, his loan, him being nominated for Player of the Month, and some comments by the Real Betis manager. So hello and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to a 10-minute Manchester United news roundup, where I'm going to try and round up all the news and information that you need to know coming out this evening in 10 minutes. So, this is what's been said by Chris Wheeler of the Daily Mail, rounded up by Amorim Era on Twitter. Key finance summary. So this is the key points from what Chris Wheeler said in his report. Definitely go check out the full report. But it was said, interest costs of the Glazer buyout have now topped 1 billion after a further 18.8 million payment. Without extra 80 million from Ineos, United will be down 15 million in cash. Total debt now 731 million plus over 300 million in transfer fees still owed on a revolving credit card. The financial situation at Manchester United is not good. Ineos put a big cash injection, which has given us a bit more money, but Ineos can't do that every year. Ineos themselves aren't particularly, full of money, all the cost cutting and stuff. We also know that the total cost of interest payments since the leveraged Glazer buyout now exceeds 1 billion, which is ridiculous. Do you know what? The fact that back in, 2005, the Glazers were allowed to buy this club that had zero debt and put 550 million on this club in the first place is a disgrace. The fact that people let these businessmen who do not like football buy the biggest football club in England was a disgrace. I still cannot believe that that was allowed to happen over 18 years ago. It's been 20 years nearly. It was also said that United confirmed they spent 14.5 million in costs associated with the departure of Ten Hag and various members of football staff. Dan Ashworth was paid compensation of 4.1 million despite working at United. We also paid 4 million to bring him in, so that's 8 million to have Dan Ashworth here for 159 days. And people forget, people will say, but Dan Ashworth wanted Southgate. Dan Ashworth did not want Southgate. That was them trying to scapegoat them. Dan Ashworth did not make the decision to keep Ten Hag. He was still on gardening leave. Dan Ashworth came in for a month of the transfer window, was sceptical that sacking Ten Hag just after you just spent all that money on him and bringing in Ruben Amorim, a completely different manager with a completely different style mid-season, could be a risk, and he lost his job for it. So while Ineos have injected money into the club and while Ineos have the ambition to get this club back on track, which I'm happy with, they also have wasted money and made bad decisions and made bad choices. That worries me. 14.5 million would not have happened had we just had we just sat Ten Hag in the summer and brought Amorim in to begin with. Continuing on, Adam on Twitter, go give Adam Joseph ___ a follow on Twitter. He sort of did a summary of everything that's come out from multiple sources, saying today's revenue declined 12%. Total revenues declined 12%, stemming from probably going to UCL Europa. If we're not in Europe next season, it's going to be even lower. Matchday revenue was up 9.2%. Obviously, the prices are up as well. Commercial revenue up 18.5%, but the sponsorship revenue up 9.7%, but broadcasting revenue down 42.1%. Big part due to not being in the Champions League and the form and everything. Operating of profit of 3.1 million, down from the 27 million in Q2, although Q2 will always be higher. And all of this extra information. Now, I definitely go give Adam a follow, but he was sort of breaking down the financial situation at Manchester United and just what a mess that it is. Losing money. And Barada said, we recognise the challenges in improving our men's team's league position. We're working hard collectively to achieve that. But at the same time, we're pleased to progress to the knockout phase of the Europa League and the fifth round of the FA Cup. But sacking Ten Hag was 14 million, including staff. The revolving credit facility is down to 215 million from 266. But yeah, the club financially is not in a good state. And you hear all these other stories and all these other news that United is still contemplating whether to replace Dan Ashworth. I always said on the Dan Ashworth situation, we shouldn't have sacked him. We sacked him because he was sceptical to bring Amorim in mid-season because he had a completely different style. There was not much money to spend to Ten Hag, and we just spent all that money on Ten Hag. I think Ten Hag needed to be sacked. I can understand if Ineos all had one idea and Ashworth had a second idea Ashworth doesn't align with those ideas. Maybe long-term sacking Ashworth was the right decision because his vision did not align with those at the club. But I thought that Ashworth is a reasonable man that's had success everywhere he's been, and maybe if he has worries and concerns, maybe it was worth listening to Ashworth rather than icing him out. I think that we could regret that. Now, we've been linked to Atletico Madrid and the Bilbao directors of football recently, but nothing is reported to be close. We've brought in people from PSG, but not director of football. Now, I've seen this all over Twitter. I don't know if the news report itself has been deleted. I don't know if this report itself has been deleted because I've tried to find the report itself and I can't find it, but I've seen it all over Twitter. And a couple of people are saying this, that the Mail has claimed that United have stepped up their pursuit of leaks and moles, and one source who was leaking the United teams has said, Ruben Amorim has lost his shit, so I have to lie low for a bit. Which doesn't really make sense. Is the leaking that he's not going to leak out much information because Ruben Amorim is angry? Which means whoever is doing this, if it's a player, if it's a member of staff, or it could just be completely made up. That's a joke. I don't know if I believe this story. What the leaker's going to say, you know what, I'm just going to let you know. I'm not going to leak as much information because Amorim's fuming. He's getting annoyed about the leaks. And you can't blame Amorim. Amorim is at home and then he'll look at his phone or look at the newspaper and all of a sudden he'll see Man United players don't rate Amorim's system. Man United players have doubts over Amorim's system. Man United players have doubts over this, doubts over that. Now, Ruben Amorim's smart enough to know that the media do make up information, or the media might have heard that information 3 months ago and this is old and they're waiting until there's a bit of pressure on Amorim to, put that information out there so it has more of an effect. But Ruben Amorim's going to read that. He's not going to be happy. He's going to be saying, say it to my face. If I'm Ruben Amorim and I'm hearing that the players are saying this and this in the leaks, I'd be saying, say it to my face. Because if they're not saying it to his face, Ruben Amorim's got nothing to be worried about because they're cowards. I think that the players are questioning Ruben Amorim's system. I can understand that. I can understand doubts, question marks. Some players don't suit the system. But why are you leaking to the media? Why are you telling the mainstream media what United shite is? Why are you going to the Daily Mail? Why are you going to Samuel Lucas? And why are you leaking stuff? And I can't blame Ruben Amorim for being fuming. Rashford got accused of being the leaks. We're still getting leaks. Team news still being leaked. I can't blame Ruben Amorim for being fuming. The leaks shouldn't be happening in the first place. Whether the journalists are making it up or not, we don't know that for a fact. But they shouldn't happen. Anyway, I want to get into the next story. This was touched upon by the likes of Laurie Whitwell and Andy Mitten. Now, before I get into the story, I just want to tell you a stat that I read today, just to tell you about the striker situation at Man United. Nottingham Forest are 3rd place, Manchester United are 15th place. Manchester United have generated more big chances than Nottingham Forest this season. Now, Nottingham Forest are massively overperforming their XG, we're massively underperforming our XG, which means hopefully next season, if we can actually put the ball in the back of the net, it should balance out. But to tell you the situation with strikers and the mess at United, we've got more XG, and we've missed more big chances than Nottingham Forest this season. So Laurie Whitwell was saying on the Talk of the Devils podcast that a €70 million deal for Gyökeres to United seems unlikely based on the money, which is interesting because I think I'm willing to spend 50 million on a big experienced striker. We spent 72 million on an unexperienced Rasmus Højlund that was 3rd choice at Atalanta. Clearly we should be able to spend 58 million, I think it will cost to bring Gyökeres in, which I don't think is a bad deal, but United are worried about finances. I think that's United trying to save face. I think that's United finding out Gyökeres won't go to them unless we're in the Champions League and we're trying to save face. United were looking at Sesko before signing Xerxes last summer, which worries me because Sesko and Xerxes are 2 polar opposite profiles. Sesko's just another Højlund. I think he'd be in the system and he'd struggle. But how have you gone from Sesko to Xerxes? It says to me there's no plan because surely your backup for Sesko would be a profile like Sesko, which is probably what Ten Hag once said, because he never used Xerxes properly. If Ipswich get relegated, United could afford Delap. Could be 40 million, but it could be hard if Ipswich stay up. Andy Mitten, who's also on the Talk of the Devils extra podcast, make sure you go check it out. One of the best United podcasts in the space. Spoke about Benjamin Sesko being a top target in the past, how United have sounded out Osimhen from Napoli, but the quotes like 110 million in previous windows, they were not going to go near that. Lewis Sapinda was an option. We were linked to him last January. Xerxes wasn't one of United's top targets. We brought him in. I think Dan Ashford was sceptical about Xerxes apparently. And just before the Højlund deal was wrapped up, Spurs and PSG made offers were worth more than United apparently. And is that for Rasmus Højlund? Which is interesting. PSG went all out for Højlund, but he's a Man United fan. He chose us. But Ten Hag obviously wanted Harry Kane, and we ended up getting Højlund because we couldn't get Kane. But interestingly, there was other clubs that were willing to match her offer for Rasmus Højlund, which is kind of crazy, which also says to me, if United do look to sell Rasmus Højlund in the summer, which they might, there'll be clubs out there willing to spend a bit of money on him because he's still got potential, and they look at Antony and think, well, look, let's see what Højlund can do in a different environment. So Antony's actually been nominated for the LEAKER Player of the Month award, and the Real Betis manager Manuel Pellegrini said on Antony, the most important thing has been his attitude and his self-criticism. If Manchester United paid that much money for him, it's because he's a player of a great level. Who knows, for unknown reasons, he was unable to perform as expected at United. You put Antony in a better environment with less pressure, and look how he's doing. That is all the latest Manchester United news, guys, rounded up into a 10-minute video. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please do go ahead and hit that like button, and of course subscribe down below for new. There's also other news stories and rumours going about, which I'll touch upon in my video tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Bye.